And welcome back, everyone, to the semifinal of the Speed Chess Championship. I'm Grandmaster Benjamin Bach, and I'm joined by Women's International Master Fiona Stel Antoni. Fiona, that was a great game right before the break, and Hikaru takes a 1-point lead.
Yeah, this one, it's going to be very tough to come back from MVL. What a game that was. Remember, MVL started this match with a 3-0 lead. He's down 4-5 now, down by a point. And that game was crazy because Hikaru got a really nice position out of the opening. Then he missed this queen a5. He had a losing position. Then he had a winning position. Then the endgame looked like a dead draw. Hikaru won it in the end. And this is the side after 3+1. So Hikaru now in a great position in this match.
Exactly. We see MVL switching, with the move knight c3 and move 3. I'm a little bit surprised, as I thought MVL was getting good positions out of the opening. Now he plays bishop to b5. So let's see what Hikaru is going to do here. Queen c7, kingside castle by MVL, and knight d4. White has a lot of moves here. There's bishop d3, d3, rook e1, and MVL settles on rook d1. But that last game must have felt really good for Hikaru. He takes the lead going out of the 5+1 portion. Also, he won that game by one tempo, right? Like you're calculating, your clock is ticking with the last couple of seconds, and then you see I win by one move, and that must have felt so good. And actually, we saw Hikaru typing in the chat right before the break. He said, "Let's go, baby." So the energy is certainly there.
Absolutely. I missed the chat actually, but I saw the celebration on camera. We could see how much that win meant to him. And here, very interesting position. White just pushed the pawn to e5. And now, okay, Hikaru trades on f3, and that pawn is captured. So where is the compensation here for White?
Yeah, the compensation is on White's development. White has a knight, a bishop, a rook developed, and the queen as well. Hikaru had to play the move f6. The knight on e5 was under attack, and it's the only move to defend it. d6 was not available, as then you would hang your king. So d3 by MVL. He wants to go bishop f4 on the next move. a6, a nice move to push that bishop back. I guess MVL is going to go bishop a4, keep the pin for the moment, and perhaps at some point Hikaru can go, let's say, b5, and then e6 and meet bishop f4 with d6. So I think he should be doing quite all right. Again, I know him as a pawn grabber, so perhaps I think he doesn't mind his position at all.
Yeah, we see him grab some space there on the queen side, then following up with his e6, as you said. And White is going to have to show something quite quickly, I feel, here. Because if Hikaru can consolidate, he'll just be up a pawn. So what is that quick something that I'm on about? What do you think White should do?
I don't know. I actually like Hikaru's position the more I look at it. f4 by MVL, but maybe you just go knight to c6. He goes knight f7 instead. Now the question is, of course, is how is Hikaru going to untangle? He can go bishop b7, develop that bishop that way, but it's not going to be as easy to develop the dark square bishop, because if you go bishop b7, you're always going to hang the pawn on g7 a4. An interesting move by MVL. I think he's inviting the move b4 so he can jump with his knight into the center. Knight d5 would attack the queen. Black, of course, cannot take as the e-pawn is pinned. But maybe this gives Hikaru the opportunity to play a move like c4. And he finds it, of course. If the bishop moves, maybe now like bishop c5, followed by kingside castles.
Looks very promising to me. Bishop b7 also makes a lot of sense. Do you think Black? I was going to say Black could castle queenside, but maybe that's a bit too much.
That looks a little bit too much, yeah. But MVL could not take the pawn because there would have been a fork with queen c5 or queen b6. But now the pawn is under attack. So let's see how Hikaru will deal with it. Maybe a move like queen c6, defending the pawn, lining up this battery. A move like knight d6 followed by knight f5 also makes a lot of sense. And just to remind everybody, we are in the 3+1 portion, and the games are only going to get faster and faster from now on.
Absolutely. This is the very beginning. I see Desi Blick, for example, just came back after leaving an hour ago. It was 0-3 at the time. It's now 5-4 in Hikaru's favor. We just started the 1 hour of 3+1. And MVL has just captured on g7. We see a trade on e3. And, well, the rook on h8 is defended right now. So you think Hikaru can go pawn grabbing some more?
Yeah, and there he goes. Queen takes a 4. rook f3, but queen to g5. And the thing, Fiona, is that white can regain this pawn, but look at this endgame. You trade, you go knight e5 after, you have a great knight on e5, and the bishop on e2 is just completely dead. It's blocked by the pawn on c4, and I don't see how it will come back into the game. If you go c3, black goes b3. So this looks great for Hikaru. Just knight e5 followed by king e7, and I think he's going to score another win here.
Yeah, what a depressing position for white. The rook is under attack. Rook af1 makes a lot of sense here to get the rook into the game. Double on the f file, but as you said, the problem is not the rooks. The problem is that bishop on a2 right now. Knight e5 defends the pawn on c4. I don't see. I mean, can you somehow play c3? But even if the bishop gets back to b1, I mean, it will still be staring at its own pawn. This is a really, really sad position for MVL.
Yeah, the one question, though, is that after... Oh, he sacks. Wow. I think now Hikaru is just winning. I just wanted to point out real quick. I wonder if after rook h6, how exactly black makes progress. I mean, you go king f7, but for the moment your king cannot move. It has to keep defending this pawn. If you move your rook, you hang this. And if you move your knight, then you hang the c4 pawn. So perhaps it was a little bit too early for MVL to panic there, for lack of a better word, because this endgame to me just looks lost.
Do you think MVL is a little on tilt?
Perhaps a little bit, yeah. Like that last game, he had a great position with the black pieces. If he wins that game, that makes a big difference. He has a 1-point lead instead of a 1-point deficit. Also, he was up 3 points earlier in the match, so I think he could be on a bit of tilt.
Yeah, I feel like the break came at a bad time if you're MVL. Like, you kind of just want to keep playing. You lost a painful game, and then you're left with considering where did it all go wrong, not just in this game, but in the match. Meanwhile, Hikaru making some progress here in this endgame where he's up in exchange. What's the way to win it? The king will go up to c5, and then what?
Yeah, so Hikaru's going to move his king up to c5. He's first going to, I thought it was going to defend the pawn, I guess. Okay, he goes rook to g4. So his idea is to attack this pawn on g3, force white's king to defend it, and now wiggle his way up with king c5 to d4. Bishop e5 is a tricky move, though. In case of king c5, there would be bishop e8. So perhaps he's going to have to take a step back.
And that's what he does. Rook g8, making sure the bishop cannot come to e8 from where suddenly black wouldn't have been able to defend the pawn. I guess the bishop will go back to b5 again.
Right,
But
so I think he's going to go king up.
Yeah, because the rook can go to h6 to defend the pawn. I'll give a check first.
I think check was a little bit more accurate, as if you go rook h6, there might have been g4 by MVL. That being said, Hikaru is still stuck. He sacks the pawn. It's still not that straightforward how you continue. Like rook g7, king here. He goes there. Oh wait, but the bishop is trapped. The bishop is trapped. No, that's it. King e7, rook h6. That's game over.
Very, very nice. MVL throws in the tower. The bishop was gone. Hikaru takes a 2-point lead. We see another big reaction there, and now he's playing with the white pieces. Things are really falling apart for MVL, and Hikaru, he's been playing so well for this last hour.
Yeah, and we see him playing normal openings. I think that's what he has to do against MVL. MVL knows a lot of openings inside and out, so the only way you get an advantage, or, well, I think you should just play normal openings. If you play bad openings, MVL is not a bad player. Hikaru is often going to end up with a worse position. So I like how he's approaching this one a lot better. Perhaps bishop b2 or a trade. I don't know about the trade. The d3 pawn is a little bit backwards, but I think Hikaru made some great adjustments, and that's why he's taking control of this match.
I'm surprised that MVL captured on c4 so soon, but okay, he's still targeting that pawn on d3, but Hikaru now also has a target on c5, and these trades, I mean, I'm not saying Hikaru's position looks great, but it's not bad, and I think at this point, at the start of the match, it felt like, draw is not great, we're down three games, but at this point, I think any draw is good for Hikaru, especially considering that the bullet is yet to come.
Exactly, yeah. So let's see what he's going to do. He could take a pawn here. He could take an e7 followed by taking on e5, but black will always get pretty good compensation. The rook is active on d3, the other rook is active as well, and that would open up that dark square bishop, and MVL goes knight d4. He's hanging his knight on e7, but in case you think there's knight e2, you trade on c1, and all of that looks very risky for Hikaru. For the moment, he would have 2 knights for the rook, but everything looks really loose. Maybe there's bishop h6 at the end as well. So I would be surprised if he goes down this variation. Then again, if he doesn't do that, what else is he going to do? Maybe take, but it feels like MVL is just better there.
Yeah, I was just looking at the camera. He looks a little bit perplexed. He did decide not to take on e7. And what is going on now? I mean, it's a weird position. If you're black, no.
h6 by MVL, creating some love for the king. It does look a little bit slow though, and he deprives himself of that option to play bishop h6 down the line. So let's see what Hikaru is going to do. Maybe a4, making sure that pawn is never hanging, and then he can go knight e3 at the right moment after. He goes rook c2 instead. Perhaps he wants to double up. I think if Hikaru can, let's say, go rook c1, h3, and then move the knight, he should be doing quite fine. But for the moment, MVL has an initiative going here. So knight c6, nice move. And I suppose he's looking at knight d4.
Yeah, d4 looks like a very nice square for the knight. And the question is, so rook c2, can Hikaru just double on the c file, or will knight d4 be a problem?
Knight d4 does look like a problem. Maybe MVL, maybe he recaptures with the pawn, followed by rook c3, or like rook b3 and d3. What Hikaru could do, by the way, is knight takes e5. The idea is that in case you take the rook, you hang the knight. If you take the knight, you hang the rook. And in case you take the rook on c2, then you take on d3. Black has rook c3 at the end, though, and is certainly better. But perhaps this is the lesser evil than keeping all of the pieces on the board.
Yeah, and hopefully Hikaru, who's spending a bunch of time here, that's hopefully what he's calculating right now. He's dropping to the 1 minute mark. We haven't seen him be down this much on the clock for a while. I think it's a sign that, you know, he doesn't love his position, but he finds knight takes e5, and I think that was really important.
Yeah, and a5, an interesting move by MVL. Perhaps he didn't want to allow Hikaru the option to go knight to b4. a4 now by Hikaru. But I think sooner or later this pawn is going to be lost. The question is exactly how, though, because rook c4 runs into rook c1. Again, Hikaru would just need a couple of moves. Like, let's say h3, move his rook into the game, and he should be doing quite fine. That being said, this a-pawn is weak, and if MVL picks it up, he's got a very strong passer, which is also supported by this bishop on the long diagonal.
MVL plays knight b4. The computer did not like it because of this move by Hikaru, rook c1. He is targeting the a-pawn now, but how do you bring more attackers? Knight c5, and that pawn looks untouchable. Okay, so bishop f8, that beautiful bishop wants to give itself up in order to capitalize on the a-pawn.
And h5 by Hikaru is somewhat of a surprising move. I thought he's gonna like move his knight up and followed by rook c7. He wants to create some weaknesses on the king side. But MVL, you know, MVL very often when he's faced with this move h5, he just takes the pawn. Here, he doesn't. He lets Hikaru take the pawn. So let's see, if you take the f-pawn, there are some annoying checks. Knight d3 was a nice move, by the way. He now always has the option to go rook a1, followed by knight takes f2. So MVL certainly a bit better here still.
He's taking his time to figure out how to recapture. Does he want to take with the pawn? Does he want to take with the king? King takes has the disadvantages that now the pawns are disconnected, but pawn takes, as you mentioned, had the disadvantage of running into some checks. And the king now, well, it has two choices. Forward to h5 or backward. Backward certainly feels safer, and that's what he does.
I like to move king h7, because if he had gone to g7, then knight h4 and knight f5 would have come with check. Hikaru still has some work to do here. He's still worse. e4 is under attack. Also, the pawn on f2 is hanging in a lot of variations, and Fiona is also almost half a minute behind on the clock.
Yeah, he decides to push that pawn on the e-pawn that was under attack. The question is, how will he meet rook a2? So f2 falls, but we open up the black king now, and for sure, white has counterplayed. The a-pawn is very near to touchdown, but not easy to convert with black.
Yeah, looking tricky for Hikaru. Rook h1 now is a big threat. So what do you do? I don't see it. Also, this knight can sometimes jump back to c3. Knight e4, knight c3. Wait, where do you go with the king? If you go to f4, there's a check over here, and that endgame I think is winning. Goes to g4, but knight c3 and defending the pawn, and moving the rook on the next move looks winning for black.
Yeah, we saw Hikaru shake his head. I think I don't know what move he was unhappy with himself with, but this position now probably lost just because I think we don't see how to stop the queen, and Hikaru actually resigns here after king g8. So Hikaru, MVL brings it back within 1 point. That was a tough loss. MVL, he's back. He's turned on the light. And he's back within 1 point. Hikaru now with the black pieces. This is still a very, very close match, and MVL sticking now to this knight c3 on move 3.
Yeah, so let's see what Hikaru is going to do. He goes into the classical Sicilian with move d6. Here, white has a lot of options. I don't necessarily recall h3 as one of the main ones, but it's certainly a move. Bishop g5 and bishop c4 were the main options. Yeah, and unfortunately, last time for Hikaru, I was a little bit surprised he just resigned. The position looked lost, but normally he still finds some trick, right? He still finds a way to complicate, make things difficult for his opponent, but perhaps he just didn't see it. He saw the time taken down and he just hit the resign button. So we have this game right here, which...
I think just... I was going to say, just to further your point, because we also often see Hikaru run the time down in those situations where he has a match lead. So it looks like here he's happy to get in more 3+1 games, which is an interesting observation.
Yeah, a little bit surprising. Perhaps he just wanted to keep the flow of the match going.
Yeah.
Because if you run on the timer, perhaps it can also take you out of your own rhythm. All right, so here we have an interesting position. I like what MVL has. He's got firm control over the d5 square. That being said, Hikaru does have the bishop pair. And this bishop on h6, it's not attacking anything, but it is controlling a lot of squares along this diagonal. So I think it should be approximately balanced, perhaps a slight edge for white, but it's very difficult to really put that to work. I think Hikaru is just going to castle and then perhaps a move like knight a5 to put some pressure on the bishop on b3.
Yeah, castling makes a lot of sense. He plays knight a5 first. The rook comes in. MVL says, you can take my bishop on b3. I don't mind. Both players have castled. The bishop is gone, and we have an interesting imbalance with Hikaru having the 2 bishops and MVL the 2 knights. Which do you favor here?
I would slightly prefer the knights. They're more active than the bishops for the moment. Again, white has a firm control over the d5 square. Hikaru goes g6. Perhaps he's preparing the move f5 to get even more space in the center. He can prepare the moves like king g7. It's not that easy to come up with a plan here for white. Maybe moves like b4 followed by b5, creating some weaknesses on the queen side could be considered. I think Hikaru would love to go rook c5 at some point, because Hikaru wants to take on d5 and force white to recapture with the pawn. If white is forced to recapture with the pawn, then you have a nice majority in the center and on the king side, but white always, of course, is going to recapture with the rook, and that's why MVL goes b4 to stop this rook from coming up.
Very nice idea. Hikaru immediately striking on the king side with f5. Quick response by MVL, rook e1. I'm always curious I'm always tempted in my own games to play f4 and try to go for some attack. But of course, closing the position has its drawbacks, and h4 is a surprising move. Does MVL want to plant a knight on g5?
I think so, yeah. I think that's his idea. Hikaru with the move queen e8 was aiming for this move. So I think that's the response MVL is planning. So let's see how Hikaru is going to deal with this one. Maybe a move like king h8 to meet knight g5 with bishop to g8. Looks a little bit passive for the moment, but you can always kick this knight back with bishop g7 followed by h6. So I don't know, like to me this looks like a typical Hikaru way to maneuver.
Yeah, both players here are spending quite a bit of time in this game. Not easy to understand how to what the plans are. It's not a typical position. Hikaru doesn't go for king h8, instead queen d8. So also controlling the square on g5. And I'm a bit lost for words. I'm struggling to find plans for white here.
Yeah, no, it's a dodgy position. Both sides are moving back and forth. MVL finally decides to take on f5. So now big moment. How is Hikaru going to recapture? He takes with the g pawn, okay. But now MVL jumps in. So what happens if we just take twice? Maybe there's f4 hitting the queen and the pawn on e5. That looks problematic. Like I don't know what Hikaru is going to do there.
Yeah, and I mean, Hikaru is down on the clock again here with the position. Not an easy position. The black king is now the one that's more airy. The white queen looking to come into h5, and 35 seconds only for Hikaru. MVL sensing his chance to tie the match here again.
Yeah, so Hikaru decides to trade on d5 and goes rook to f6. The d6 pawn is still weak. Maybe you can go rook g6 at the right moment, but it's looking scary. This is not looking easy at all. f4, nice move by MVL, trying to blast open the position. e4 by Hikaru. Maybe g4, just break it open once again.
G4 is a brave move for sure, played by MVL. I have to say, you know, in the beginning I said I'm very impressed by MVL's play. Here I'm impressed that MVL hasn't collapsed. I think the second half of the 5+1 was really traumatic for him, but it looks like he has found his footing again. The G file is now open. We see some trades. How do you recapture the bishop?
I think with the f pawn, so that in case black takes on f5, there's no pawn hanging on f4. Like, I think just pawn takes, rook takes f5, queen e4. Looks like a very big advantage for white. And yeah, like I said, MVL's been impressive in his SEC campaign so far, but also in this one. Like I said, he started off great. Hikaru made a comeback, and personally, I thought, okay, now Hikaru is going to take control over this match, but MVL says no, and he comes back with 2 back-to-back victories, it looks like.
Yeah, and rook f7 here, hitting both the h-pawn and the b7 pawn. Hikaru tries to save the h-pawn here. Is, what do you call this? En croissant?
Yeah, en croissant. Oui. Yeah, so MVL comes back, and it's now all tied, 6-6.
Yeah, MVL winning 2 games back-to-back. Hikaru has the white pieces. We're nearing slowly the halfway mark of this 3+1. What a close match. I have to say the previous game was just really well played. I couldn't even pinpoint, you know, a mistake by Hikaru in that previous game. I think it's an incredibly high level match.
Yeah, I think, yeah, he made some small mistakes. I think after pawn takes f5, he should have recaptured with the bishop. They would have kept an acceptable position. After pawn takes a knight g5, it quickly fell apart. So I think that was a critical mistake, and perhaps he was a little early to trade on b3. Right now, we see them going into this Sicilian again. Hikaru scored a nice win with white pieces earlier, but there MVL went for queenside castles, which to me seemed like an unforced error. I think if MVL just goes for kingside castles, he should be doing absolutely fine here.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if he repeated that, and indeed here he goes to the kingside. Hikaru keeps pushing these pawns. H8 is a funny square for the knight. It's not in general where you want your knights to be, but we see MVL's idea that knight is going to rejoin the game via f7. What is Hikaru's plan?
Good question. Normally he would love to go h6, but I think black is very well prepared to deal with that. Maybe you can even take followed by knight f7 or push your pawn into g5. So Hikaru reroutes his knight to e3, but I don't know, MVL's got slightly more space and he can decide when he's going to go d4, but instead he creates a lot of tension by going for f5.
Yeah, f5, and we get another incredibly, well, not incredibly sharp, but quite double-edged position here. The white knight looking to jump back into the game, I guess, via f4. And looking at, I'm really struggling because we see so many, I feel, quite unconventional positions where it's not clear what is the plan, what is the idea. Does Hikaru ever want to break in the center? Should the queen step off the e-file? None of the above.
I guess at some point your queen is going to move to d2, so that's why Hikaru wanted to develop his bishop first. So let's see how MVL is going to continue. He goes bishop f6, queen d2 now. Perhaps d4 at the right moment. Hikaru is probably going to keep it close with c4, but maybe MVL can play a move like knight e5 at the right moment. He's got more space here, and there we go, d4. I expect c4 now by Hikaru, but it definitely feels like MVL again has an edge here.
Yeah, he's really regrouped in impressive fashion after losing a lot of games in the second half of the 5+1. Question is, the position looks nice. He has more space in the center. But again, it feels like the pieces need to be reorganized, and he does that by bringing the knight back to d8.
Right, so he's aiming for knight e6, h6 by Hikaru, g6. I don't know, this pawn on h6 is a bit of a double-edged sword. Sometimes it's a big asset, as Black always has to worry about checkmating ideas. On the other hand, it can turn into a weakness in the endgame. Hikaru recaptures with a knight, and I think if he has the chance, he would love to go knight f4 and plan the knight on d5.
Knight f7, offering a trade of knights. And
Right,
Hikaru
so
goes for it. So can we now bring in the other knight?
Knight f4 makes a lot of sense. I think MVL wants to go knight e5, threatening a deadly fork on f3, and perhaps that's why Hikaru goes queen f4 to make sure that that jump doesn't happen.
Yeah, queen f4, a good idea. MVL says, well, I still want to jump into e5 with the knight anyway, even if there's no f4 on f3. Ball is back in Hikaru's court. We see the two players very focused. The position, according to the engine, is even, but there's so much life. In this, it feels like one wrong step, and either player could be in trouble here.
Yeah, queen c7 by Hikaru, very ambitious move. He's hitting the pawn on b7. Also, he's eyeing that g7 square. For the moment, it's defended, but, you know, he's bringing tactical ideas into position. This is inviting the move knight e5, threatening a check on f3 and hitting that pawn on d3. Perhaps Hikaru just wants to take this b7 pawn, and after knight takes d3, he has something in mind, but I don't know exactly what. So let's see if MVL is going to go for that. I think he cannot. I mean, he can go queen f7, but after queen d6, it feels like Black is playing a bit too passively there.
Yeah, MVL has really been spending a lot of time in this moment. He's now under 40 seconds. And he does not go for knight e5. Instead, he says, you can have my pawn. I'm going on the attack on the king side and taking h6 in the process.
Right, he picks up the h6 pawn. So maybe now Hikaru can trade, followed by rook e1. It feels like Black's king there becomes a little bit exposed. The knight can also jump around and create some threats. So, because the queen alone cannot do a whole lot of damage. This knight also cannot jump up. Instead, he goes queen e7 and attacks the rook.
Okay.
Knight f7 only move.
Yeah.
But that does hang a few pawns. So
Yeah.
I think MVL was a bit quick there to play knight e5.
And this is looking good. Now, the problem is sometimes in these spots when two pawns are hanging, how do you decide which one to capture? Both look tempting. Hikaru didn't take either of them.
Yeah, he goes f4 to make sure that there's no pawn pushes. I guess also making sure that this knight cannot jump back. But now queen h3, hitting the pawn on g3. Maybe you have to go king f2 to defend?
King f2. Okay, rook h1 is not a threat yet because the queen can still go to g4. The computer did not like that last move one bit.
Maybe just take on c5, and the d4 pawn is hanging with check. So not a big fan of that move either, but maybe MVL wants to go for knight h6 followed by knight g4.
Okay. 13 seconds, by the way, for MVL. I don't think he's going to survive that one.
But rook h1, queen g4, rook e3. What is Hikaru doing? Wait, like all of a sudden MVL's threatening mate. You have to go queen g2. Otherwise, I mean, MVL's got a bunch of threats here. Knight e4 is made. It was missed. He's still crushing rook e2.
Yeah,
he's just completely lost here all of a sudden.
What a... Where did it... What was the mistake?
Check. Check. Where's the window? Rook f4 is apparently the only winning move, but he trades. Check. Hikaru hanging on by the skin of his teeth. This is incredible.
It's so crazy. MVL down to 3 seconds. Is he gonna repeat? He repeats.
Wow, and we have
wow,
what a game.
Save. Oh,
what
both
a game,
players
Fiona.
are gonna be disgusted after this one. I'm sure Hikaru felt he was in the driver's seat for most of the game. Then MVL, I'm sure he knew he was winning, but he just didn't have enough time to find a way. In the end, that was a crazy fight, and the match is still tied.
Yeah, so now we are having a Kalashnikov. Hikaru played this in the American Cup with quite a bit of success. So I wonder if MVL has also looked at this. Like I said, Hikaru's played it in recent times. But let's perhaps look real quick at what happened there. MVL was crushing, but he couldn't quite figure out the win with seconds ticking down on his clock. So Hikaru was in the driver's seat, but it all went wrong when he played this move, rook h1, instantly. I thought, like, check over here to me looked pretty good. Wait, that just wins a rook. Check, and you win a rook. That was a missed opportunity by Hikaru, because rook h1, now he's lost. MVL goes here, the rook comes down to e3. Here, rook e8. Check. And apparently MVL had the winning move here, rook takes f4. But not easy to spot when you have seconds on your clock.
Yeah.
Like here, he's still better, Fiona, but it's not easy, you know, with time ticking down. And Hikaru pulls off a miraculous escape to keep the match tied.
To be honest, I think it was a good decision, practically speaking, by MVL to take the draw in the end. He was down to 2-3 seconds. Bishop and knight is such a dangerous attacking pair. His king was absolutely out in the open. So I think a good practical decision by MVL, even if he was better. In the end, the match is tied. And what do you make about this position that we see on the board here?
I think Hikaru is doing quite all right. So again, MVL can take control over this d5 square, but if you go 95, Hikaru can always take. The difference here is that he's got a lot of pieces fighting for the d5 square as well. Both his knight and his bishop goes 97 and now goes d5 to get rid of that weakness. And Hikaru is very, very comfortable here. He's definitely not worse. I think it's also not fair to say he's better, but the position is just completely balanced. But at least he's played much better than the last game in the Sicilian.
Yeah, this one, I think it's the first game that isn't, you know, very double-edged. This one is a quiet one. I think maybe we need it after all the excitement. It's also, I believe, the last game before the players get a short break towards the middle here of the 3+1 section. If you had to play one of the two sides, which one would you choose and why?
Perhaps black. Black perhaps is a very small edge. Black has already created some luft. These pawns on the queen side can potentially be targeted with a move like rook bc8, but that being said, it just looks completely even. By the way, we got a funny comment in the chat. Someone pointed out that all of us except Hikaru are wearing white. I didn't realize that yet.
Oh yeah, I did realize actually that you and I were matching, but I hadn't thought of MVL. Hikaru though really stands out. I mean, you know, he's the only one not wearing white, but he's going absolutely all out with the shirt and the hat. And well, Hikaru here has just offered a trade of queen, which I was gonna say surprises me slightly that he would go for this weakening of the pawns on the queen side, but the computer thinks he's still slightly better here.
Yeah, I like what he's done. He's created an imbalance in the pawn structure. Maybe at the right moment he can go rook d5. If MVL would take, you rectify black's pawn structure. MVL goes rook d3 instead. Maybe Hikaru can trade, but then he can take the king, and the king quickly comes to c4. So let's see how Hikaru is going to deal with this one. I mean, maybe a5, a4. It should be pretty balanced, but Hikaru might have a slight edge because he's got more space.
Yeah, he took his time here, decided to just give up a pawn with c4. And Benjamin, I see from your reaction that this really surprises you.
Yeah, I don't... What is the point in case white just takes? Like, it looks like he's just giving up a pawn and MVL just takes it.
You had told us Hikaru is a pawn grabber. In this case, he decides to give up a pawn. I think rook b3, could he have missed that? It looked like there was a slight... Yeah, I think he missed rook b3.
Yeah, and we see him shaking his head. Yeah, rook b3, very nice move by MVL. You definitely do not want to trade as white fixes his pawn structure. f4 was played, but now he's creating more weaknesses for himself. Maybe just king d3, defend the pawn, and all of a sudden, Fiona, from a position that was completely fine, he's down a pawn now, and he is gonna fight. He is gonna have to fight for his life to save the game here.
Yeah, the problem is MVL. We talked about him being a great calculator. Being a great calculator often means that you're good in the endgame, because the endgame, yes, it takes some basic knowledge, but so often it is about calculation. I think it's quite well known MVL is a fantastic endgame player. This one's going to be difficult to defend now. Can you somehow create a passed pawn of your own on the king side?
I think it's going to take way too long. He's going to go g5, g4, but then what? In the meantime, MVL is just going to push this pawn, just a4, a5, a6. At the right moment, put the rook behind, and it's it's difficult to see how black can do anything here. I think this one is just lost.
Yeah, the time is ticking down, so Hikaru needs to play fast here. The position is not good. The problem is this pawn on e5 is also weak. I guess MVL wants to target that with rook b5. I just don't see how you defend. Hikaru's gonna put... Okay, gives up this pawn.
Yeah, but the entire king side is collapsing. Everything comes to check, and Hikaru resigns. MVL takes a 1-point lead.
Impressive comeback by MVL. This is not, of course, what we wanted. We see Hikaru immediately get up from his chair as the players are going to get a 7-minute break here. Yeah, I think in this game, giving up this pawn with c4, the idea was good to sort of discombobulate the pawns on the queen side, but I think he just missed rook b3, and after that, there was not much to be done. So, guys, we are going to go on a short break now, much like the players, but we need your energy. Hikaru is down by a point. There is still a bunch of time in the 3+1, and then we'll get bullet. So I still have faith in Hikaru, but we need you all here when we come back from a short break soon.
And welcome back, everyone, to the semifinals of the Speed Chess Championship presented by Coinbase. Hikaru is currently behind by a point. It's not the end of the world, Fiona, but earlier he was up by 2, so momentum has shifted a little bit in MVL's favor. What do you think he's going to do to right the ship?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, we can see 25 minutes remain on the clock. The clock has actually started. Do we have a new game already or not yet?
I mean, it should start automatically. Yeah, and
okay,
here
there we go.
We are off.
I think he shouldn't change anything, really. I think some of the games have been incredibly close. So I think maybe in the bullet, depending on what the score is, but with only 25 minutes remaining here, I don't think Hikaru should switch up so much. Maybe change some openings, but I think the openings have been a major problem.
Yeah, so here he switched it up a little bit by going rook e1. Okay, so, but I'm surprised he goes for this line again, as it felt like MVL got a very comfortable position in the game they had earlier. He goes h5, maybe he can go h6, but he goes d4 instead, breaking in the center. Interesting.
Yeah, so the break in the center, MVL decides to capture, and now I was wondering, how does Hikaru capture? Taking with the c-pawn looks logical. Are we worried that at some point MVL will take on e4 and will remain with an isolated pawn on d4?
Yeah, no, I'm certainly worried about that. I don't see how you can comfortably resolve the tension. He goes rook d1, that looks a little bit passive. At some point MVL can take, he goes f5 instead. Now e5, it looks a lot better for Hikaru. I mean, he's not better in the position, but it's better than what it could have been. Instead, MVL goes f4, sacking the pawn, but Hikaru just takes it and firmly defends it with knight f1. The bishop defends the pawn, that knight's coming down at g3. I think now Hikaru is doing pretty fine, actually.
Yeah, I'm surprised that MVL took such an aggressive approach here. He is, though, an enterprising player, both of them very sharp players. And how do you continue now? I'm sure MVL wants to target that pawn. So you were saying queen f7 is the move played.
I like queen f7 with the idea to take on g3 and then take on h5. Perhaps Hikaru can anticipate for that by going king g2. There's no good way to defend a pawn, but now in case black takes and takes on h5, he's got rook to h1. But Hikaru says no, he wants to keep that pawn on h5 on the board, and he goes knight to h5, hanging on to it.
Yeah, interesting decision. I like it. I like the greedy approach, hanging on to the pawn. MVL trying to put some pressure in the center, and we see the exchange now on f5, rook d3. That rook, I guess, is looking to swing over maybe in the future as well. Also looking to double on the d file. And what is going on here?
Yeah, so Hikaru is firmly hanging on to the pawn. He goes rook d1 now in case black takes, you take. You can take an e4. Also, rook takes f4 is no longer an option, as you can take and the queen is protected. So that's the idea, but it's all looking a little bit passive. If Hikaru can get a couple of moves and can go knight f1 to g3, I like his position, but perhaps MVL can cook something up in the meantime. Hikaru goes rook d1, and I wonder what exactly his idea is.
Yeah, especially that rook just came to d3 a few moves ago. MVL doubles up on the f file, which looks natural. Very double-edged position. I'm surprised MVL offering a trade of queens, but he still wants to take that h-pawn.
Yep, queen f5. So let's see. I mean, Hikaru can trade. I wonder if he can go king g2 and then take rook f5, rook h1. It's possible, but it's all a little bit passive. So I think Hikaru goes queen h4. So what does he have in mind after bishop d8? Now you just have to go back.
MVL indicating he is happy to repeat the position here if Hikaru goes queen h4, bishop d8. I think Hikaru will want to play on, but from his body language, it's also, you know, I don't think there's a straightforward plan here for white.
There's not an easy way for white to play on. Maybe just king g2 in case black takes, recapture. He goes queen e2 instead. That looks like a step in the wrong direction to me. Maybe now MVL can go queen h3 followed by a rook to f5. So I'm somewhat puzzled by Hikaru's play here. Knight e7 was played instead by MVL, aiming to move the knight to f5.
Yeah, the question is, where does the queen go to? Because now queen h3 is not that tempting any longer that the rook is on d3, would be looking at the queen. I think you guys, by the way, should discard all these question marks at this point. I think the engine is being very hard on the players. I don't think either of the moves are breaking the balance here too much. Hikaru is still up upon the pawn on h5 will be weak in the long term. I'm a bit worried if MVL at some point manages to open the G file, but I'm also not clear on how
And
to.
there
Okay,
he goes,
for it
g6.
immediately.
Maybe Hikaru has to keep it close, because if you take, MVL can just take with the knight, the pawn on f4 cannot be defended any further, and black just gets a crushing attack there. So it goes h6, pawn on h6 can be a weakness. Maybe MVL just goes knight g8, attacking at knight g4, queen h5, and I think this pawn is going to be gone, but Hikaru goes f3, so it takes, maybe he wants to go knight f6.
Yeah. And if I sack the exchange there, what do you make of that position? Wow.
Well, he
MVL.
goes for it. He sacks the exchange. I don't know if that's the exchange check you meant. So maybe
No,
queen
but
h2 here. Oh.
it is an exchange sack. Okay, I mean, it's
all looking extremely loose. There goes the d4 pawn. I don't know. I mean, black's got a pawn. I think a pawn, right? Only one pawn for the exchange, but white's king is open. Queen e1. I think he's looking at queen h4 to offer a queen trade, but it's looking very tricky. Wait, now queen h4. I thought earlier there might have been queen f5, but now you take and there's mate. Queen h4 is a great move here, and I think Hikaru is in the driver's seat as he's up in exchange.
Can black take the pawn? I was actually talking about the other pawn, but I guess the pawn on b2 couldn't be captured because of rook b3. So now, from a purely material point of view, the players are even, but black's pieces look so loose, as you were saying.
Yeah, rook e1 is coming, and it's very difficult to see how you're going to protect that pawn on e6. The bishop is hanging for the moment. You're going to have to move it. And after rook e1, I think this e-pawn is going to be gone. And then white's rooks can do a lot of damage. So it's looking great all of a sudden for Hikaru. And a win here will be crucial for the match and his confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Knight c6, trying to defend the bishop. The problem is the bishop is still under attack. e6 is going to drop now. And the black king, I mean, we talked about that h-pawn. That h-pawn on h6 is suddenly such a strong pawn, restricting the black king from stepping out into the center. This one looks very close to just being over, no?
Yeah, rook f8 by MVL. But yeah, the one thing you have to watch out for is not to take is there's knight d8, forking both rooks. But this one looks crushing for Hikaru right now. I mean, he's up the exchange. His rooks are doing a lot of damage on the 7 rank. Rook c1. This is going to be over, yeah, and it's going to be all tied up again.
Yeah, last-ditch attempt there to kick the knights off the rooks of the 7, but after rook takes, MVL resigns, and we are back to a tied match. This one is so close. And what's this?
He played 1a6, but judging by MVL's speed, I think he's looked at this. Now, the good thing here is that the pawn on
Let's
a6
just flip the board.
Oh, yeah. The thing is that the pawn on a6 is actually useful, as white does not have that move bishop to b5. But again, given the fact that MVL is playing so quickly here, it tells me that he's actually looked at this before the match.
Yeah, I'm very surprised by the moment that Hikaru decided to play 1a6 when the match is so close. Do you think there's some mind games going on there?
perhaps he felt like the openings weren't quite going his way. We saw him getting into some trouble in the Sicilians. That being said, it felt like in the last game he was doing absolutely fine. Right? It was just in that Rook game that for no reason whatsoever he gave up a pawn. So I think there was no reason just yet to give up the Sicilian and switch to the move a6. It feels like here MVL's got a pretty hefty advantage. All of his pieces are active, and the Rook in a7 looks super clumsy.
Yeah, that Rook, right now, it's difficult to imagine how you're going to get it out. You're going to have to get rid of the knight on b6 in order to do so. MVL is thinking the king could cancel in both directions. Which do you prefer, kingside or queenside?
I don't know, queenside castles looks pretty tempting, and just then put the rook in e1 and start doing damage over here. I think overall, Hikaru is not going to get checkmated or anything like that. The question is just how do you get this rook into the game? Well, he answers that question by going knight d7, so that after a trade you can go rook e8. But the problem, Fiona, is now how are you going to develop your kingside? You cannot go bishop e7, you hang this. f6 looks extremely scary with queen h5 to come, or pressure on the e-pawn. Rook g8 is also not an option as you hang the h-pawn. So this one looks terrible for black. And in the meantime, MVL can go queen e3, f4, f5, and it just looks crushing.
Yeah, do you just have to run with the king towards the queen side somehow? But queen g3, another good move by MVL.
I don't know what you do here. Yeah, at this moment, I don't have any good advice to offer, to be honest. F4 or 5 is going to come, and it looks crushing. I mean, you can maybe go bishop e5, trade off the bishops, but it's very, very slow. And in the meantime, f4 or 5, it looks crushing here for white.
Yeah, I think this opening experiment, it worked well against Fabi. Here, the position is just awful. Material is even. He's not down anything. But as you said, it just is tough to find a move at all.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe, again, like bishop e5, maybe rook c8 to take this pawn as quickly as possible. People were pointing out a6, or a6 had worked out against Fabiano, but I think, again, MVL had some time to prepare, right? a6 no longer is a surprise, and it's already a dubious move, and if your opponent can prepare for it, then it's even more dubious, and we see MVL really punishing this opening here.
Yeah, I think we are not going to see any more a6, even if Hikaru somehow miraculously survives this game, but f4, f5 is so fast, the pawn is already there. How do you defend? Okay, rook h6 is an attempt, but that pawn you're highlighting is hanging. I think MVL will just take it. There he goes.
Yeah, this looks resignable. I mean, the rook is trapped, and there we go. MVL takes a 1-point lead. Once again, Hikaru has some serious work to do. He cannot play a6 on the first move. MVL's got it prepared. We see Hikaru switching it up here with the Alapin opening.
Yeah, very interesting. I don't recall the last time I saw him play the Alapin, which has a reputation for being a very solid opening. But let's see what Hikaru is going to do with it. So he's striking in the center as c4. Does black just take that pawn?
Yeah, so e6 by MVL, bishop e3. Now the idea is that at some point in case black takes, there is the move knight b5, and there we have it threatening a fork on c7. All of a sudden, I like Hikaru's position here. I don't know what MVL has to do. Like queen e7, I think white takes, and white is a pretty nice initiative, actually.
Yeah, I mean, this is already very tough. A big family fork is being threatened, so MVL found what was probably the best move, castling queenside, but I would be very concerned with my king there on c8.
Yeah, it's definitely looking a little bit exposed, but it's safe for the moment. So let's see, maybe MVL is going to trade on d4 or develop with a move like bishop c5, making sure that this is not hanging. Instead, he goes knight e7, and that's given a double question mark by the computer. Looks a little bit harsh to me, Fiona, but maybe Hikaru can just trade everything and take a pawn?
That is one approach. I have to say, I'm so surprised that MVL blocked his bishop from f8. I loved your move, bishop c5. I thought that makes so much sense, developing the bishop, protecting a7. I'm curious, what is Hikaru going to do?
Takes on f5. So same idea. I think he just wants to trade everything, take an a7. By the way, we got a great question in the chat. Someone was asking, what happens if the match is tied after all of the portions. So again, there's a 5+1 portion, then 3+1, and then 1+1. If it's tied, they will play a 4-game match with the 1+1 time control. If it's still tied after that, they will go to an Armageddon game where white gets 5 minutes and both players will bid as to how much time they're willing to play with and take the black pieces. Now, you might think like, well, that never actually happens, but it did happen in the match between Wesley So and Ali Reza Fallujah. So that format is set in place for a reason.
Absolutely. What a match that was. One of the only matches that I watched almost in full. I did not think that Wesley was going to come back, that he was going to do as well as he did in the bullet. Then he won the Armageddon. But let's come back to this position. Hikaru has done everything you said. He's picked up the pawn on a7. Do you feel that black has any compensation for the pawn?
Yeah, black certainly has compensation. MVL can trade, go rook e5 or bishop c5, and the e3 pawn is certainly very weak. And I don't see how Hikaru is going to hang on to it. Like rook e5 followed by bishop c5. Looks like the pawn is just going to be gone. Perhaps what he's going to do is just go queenside castles, give it up, move his bishop out of the way, followed by quick rook f1. And you still have some initiative, but perhaps Fiona, it was a small mistake to take on f5. Perhaps he should have traded on c6, as the knight on f5 always had some pressure on the bishop on e3.
Yeah, and as you said, well, the pawn is going to drop now. The question is, do we take it with the rook or with the bishop?
Good question. Yeah, both look fine. The one thing I like here for Hikaru is that he's up a minute on the clock. The position is also double-edged. I mean, they're opposite color bishops on the board, but Hikaru's got this queenside majority, which he can start pushing up the board. It's not as easy for black to push his kingside majority up the board, and MVL keeps thinking.
I am shocked that MVL is spending so much time here. Wow! He decides not to take that pawn at all, wants to come in to the second rank here. If rook e2 is his idea to play rook d1, oh, what's the idea?
Perhaps, well, there we have it. Rook d1 is on the board, but Hikaru just goes g3. Double question mark by MVL. So you have to take, right? Otherwise, you just let black take a pawn for free. So check rook b1. But is this enough? I mean, you just get one check, it looks like.
Yeah, MVL. I'm shocked by how he's handled this. I thought he's going to take on e3. The position should be roughly even. This is great news for us. The king is going to have to run out a little bit, so white has to be careful. I'm not saying, oh, it's just a piece up and life is good. But yeah, I'm very surprised that MVL went for this. How careful, though, do you have to be?
Yeah, so you cannot defend b2. Black is going to take here. So maybe something like a4 takes in king c4, making sure that b5 is not a possibility. It is annoying, though, that there is the spin on the first rank. And Hikaru still has not moved yet. But he's very good in these positions where he's got the material advantage, and he just has to find a couple of accurate moves to crawl out of it.
Yeah, I feel like this is actually a great spot to spend the time. The computer gives a question mark, but I don't think you should pay too much attention to that. We can see Hikaru still has a great advantage. I'm wondering, do you take on b2 or can we somehow use that pin?
Great moves there by MVL. He plays rook f2, bishop g2, and then takes. If he had taken right away, there would have been bishop to c4. But now you cannot defend the a pawn comfortably. Hikaru is going to have to move his bishop, and he does so to f3. Now we see check, but white is up a piece. I don't think there's quite enough compensation. That being said, black does have 2 pawns, and the king is still quite weak.
Yeah, I mean, if he takes on h2, suddenly it's 3 pawns. The piece is still good, but I'm curious about this ending. I guess he's going to take on h2 and get that third pawn.
Yep, and there we have it. So interesting moment here for Hikaru. He can keep the rooks on the board, but that's also, of course, a little bit risky for his own king. But he can create an attack towards the black king with rook d1 and rook d3 to follow.
Yeah, I like rook d1, but it's easier, you know, to say this from our commentator's seat. But that's what Hikaru goes for. MVL understands that maybe he cannot allow the doubling on the d file, and Hikaru once again says no thank you to the rook trade.
Rook a8 now, you start creating threats.
I like this idea a lot, trying to get behind the pawns. The players, oh, I didn't realize MVL down to 3 seconds.
Yeah, it's starting to look great for Hikaru. Rook c7, a nice find though by MVL. I wonder if Rook b5 is winning, goes Rook a8 instead. I think Hikaru is going to win this game. He's better, MVL's got no time. That being said, it's far from over. Take h5. He's still got a lot of pawns.
Still got a lot of pawns. I think this could still go either way.
Don't go king up. Wait, this one is swinging out of control. Rook f6. Uh-oh, he's going to have to fight for a draw here. Take. This is looking tough. The 3 pawns are pretty scary. You just push them up the board. MVL wins this game. He goes up by 2. And Fiona, I think it's over now. The bishop is pinned. He sacks. Pawns run very fast.
I've been quiet. What a turnaround by MVL. And pawns are tricky, and yeah, that's it. Wow, what a win. This one was really a heartbreaker to lose this endgame with an extra piece. We see Hikaru is laughing, but yeah, this one is, I think, a tough one. It could be that the game that just started is the last one of the 3+1. So we really need a win here, ideally for Hikaru. Not to this. I mean, even if he doesn't win this game, there's still half an hour of bullet. But what a fight here by MVL, and in the end, you have to applaud his decision to give up that piece. You know, I think he got some help from Hikaru in the end game, but very brave play by MVL, who gets a 2-point lead.
Yeah, and Hikaru plays the bomb cloud. Not sure about that decision. The pawn on d6 is still somewhat weak, and Black doesn't really have anything in return. Like, your king is just, you know, weak here in the center. For the moment, you hang on to the pawn with like queen b6 and rook d8, but it feels like MVL should have the advantage here. Fiona, I think this game is going to be crucial. If Hikaru wins this game, he will go into the bullet with only a 1-point deficit. It will also go a long way for his confidence. However, if he loses this game, he goes into the bullet with a 3-point deficit. I think that's far from being match over, but 3 points is a lot. So it would be great here if he can score another win, or, you know, at least make sure not to lose.
I'm with you. I think really not losing this game is crucial. Also, this will only be the last game of the portion if it is quite a long game. Most games have been quite long, but we have to see what's going to happen. I'm happy to see, I think Hikaru stabilized a little bit. The position is still not fun. That pawn on d6 is going to be a long-term weakness, but I don't think it's looking quite as bad. We see an exchange on e6. And suddenly that king makes more sense on e7 at last.
Yeah, it's not too bad. The pawn on e6 restricts the knight from jumping up to d5, g5 by Hikaru. Maybe he can go g4 and create some play on the king side. He goes rook a f8. Now g4 is not really an option. Rook e3, nice move by MVL. I think he wants to go to d3, and Hikaru plans to defend that pawn with the rook coming over to c6. It feels like white's a little bit better here, but again, it's very difficult to make progress. So I'd give white a slight edge, but black's solid for the moment.
Yeah, f3 was a nice move in that the pawn was kind of targeted by the queen on b6 and the rook on f8. On the other hand, now white has a bunch of weaknesses on the dark squares around the king. The knight at some point might jump to h5, to f4. So I'd say quite double-edged, actually, once again.
And Hikaru maybe at the right moment can go d5. In case white takes, there's e4 with check. I don't think it's working right now. White still has to move d6, but it's definitely something Hikaru can look at. Can also move his king out of the center, making sure it's a little bit safer. Again, I'd give MVL a very slight edge, but it's difficult to do anything.
Yeah, and we see MVL there dropping the rook back in order to defend the pawn on c2, and Hikaru offering a queen trade. MVL says, no, thank you. And yeah, I like this move, Benjamin.
And Hikaru likes it as well. Here he goes h5, maybe g4 at the right moment, creating some counterplay on the king side. He goes h4 instead, creating this f4 outpost for his knight. But now white also has some outposts for his knight. The knight on e3 is a very good piece. It's supporting an eventual c4 push. MVL plays a little bit more quiet with c3 first. Hikaru's got this knight on f4, but it's hard to see what he can do afterwards.
Yeah, the problem is that these pawns on h3, f3 are doing a great job. It's hard to imagine how a g5, a g4 push break will ever work. We see a trade there on the queen side, and knight c2 I'm happy to see a question mark because I am worried about Hikaru's position here. If you're white, do you want to trade queens here, or you want to keep as many pieces on the board as possible?
I think you want to keep the queens on the board. White's king on h2 is feeling safer than the king on e7. Like, if the position opens up, this king can easily feel the heat. Rook Hikaru for the moment is hanging on. Rook a1 can be met with rook to a8. So I think MVL should definitely keep the queens on. It looks like he's in control for the moment, but he has to be a little bit careful with the clock. He's down 40 seconds, and if he gets low on time, anything can still happen.
Interesting that he was angling there at a possible repetition. Do you think Hikaru feels he has to play for more, or do you think he would accept a draw for here?
It's a good question. I think Hikaru wouldn't necessarily mind a draw here. He doesn't have to go for broke, so to speak. Also because I don't really see a plan for black. I don't see a plan for black at all, to be honest. I think the only thing he can hope for is to get MVL low on time, then, complicate somehow, and or wait for MVL to do something.
Wow. F4. I'm shocked that MVL feels he is the one who has to go all out here, especially with 40 seconds on the clock. But it's great news for Hikaru, especially the fact that MVL hasn't immediately played a follow-up move. I wonder if he missed something. The knight is headed to g4, but then what?
Yeah, MVL definitely looked a little bit rattled there. Perhaps he missed that Hikaru can just take with the g-pawn. In case of e takes, there's e5. So MVL certainly has compensation here, but Hikaru up a pawn. I'm starting to like him more and more. That being said, how do you convert? Maybe d5 at the right moment, but that's gonna open up everything. But I think that's his only plan right now.
Yeah, MVL is also down 30 seconds on the clock. Queen e2. Does d5 work now? Good luck calculate. Well, Hikaru goes for it.
Yeah, d5 complicating in MVL's time pressure. Someone's asking, what is a tiebreaker match if a draw tie end of the bullet? There will be a 4-game match with a 1+1 increment. Okay, so queen c4, I like what Hikaru is doing. MVL getting long time, and Hikaru creating problems.
Yeah, for sure.
It just
Computer
takes.
did not like that. I mean, it
By the
seemed
way,
kind of logical to take. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no. Yeah, rook takes d5 looks very logical. I just wanted to point out this is officially the last game in the 3+1 portion. The clock has ticked out. So after this, we will have a break and then go to the bullet. But again, it will be great for Hikaru to get another win here with the black pieces. Queen c7. Okay, a little bit surprised by that one. Maybe you should have just traded. Rook a1 now? Queen c2 and e4, e4. And f3 is coming. He should be in the driver's seat here.
Yeah, thankfully MVL didn't see that rook a1 move. That looked very powerful. What's f3?
Push. And like queen g3, knight f4. Hikaru is going to win this game. Keep sending in that energy, you guys. Keep sending it in. Queen g3, great move by Hikaru. Check. There goes the knight. Let's go!
What
Let's go.
a game. Oh my goodness. This one was a nail biter. I think that's such an important win for Hikaru. He could, if he lost that one, he was going to be down 3 points. Now he is within 1 point, and we're looking at half an hour of 1+1. And again, from a psychological point of view, a tough loss. Didn't MVL always get a tough loss in the last portion, the last game of the portion? So we are going to see what happens in the bullet. The players have left their chairs. Benjamin, what do you expect from the bullet?
I think Hikaru is the favorite. He's down a point, but I think he's the favorite because he's the better bullet player. That being said, it's going to be a close one. It's going to be a close one. MVL has shown that he can hang with the best in the world in bullet. So I think I give Hikaru the edge, but it's going to be close.
Absolutely. We'll see what happens after this short break. Don't go anywhere. I think this is going to be really, really good. I can't wait. We'll see you guys on the other side of this break.